Hi, everyone. Welcome to another discussion, I guess, another all access. It's a beautiful day in New York City. I am in New York City today. I have a little bit of regret about not being in Bogota, but it is what it is. I needed to travel a lot recently, and I just couldn't handle um, going to all the places I needed to go to for all the various different discussions that are going on with potential partners, with people who want to launch on top of us, and also travel to Colombia, much as I wanted to go. I gather that the Avalanche house in Bogota was fantastic. I'm great. I'm glad to hear it. We do have a lot of people down there from the Avalanche community, of course, and so shout out to everyone. I hope you're having fun. There's a lot that's going on in the general EVM community. There's a lot that's going on in the DeFi community. All of these communities intersect, and we have far more in common than we have in opposition to any other community. So we're all in here to put the, well, maybe not all of us, but certainly Avalanche is here to change the way the world works. And in that fight, we are joined with everybody else who also is here to bring better tech to everything financial, everything asset related, everything open computation related, everything Web3 related. So let's jump in. Let me give you the full coverage of everything that sort of I could remember from the last week about what happened in the Avalanche community. Maybe it's been longer than last week. That's probably why there's so much material. I was away last week, of course, again, as part of those travels. So let me quickly catch you up. Let's start with the biggest announcement from the last 2 weeks. Elastic subnets and elastic validation are here. What does this mean? It means that we are the best position to be the framework for all application-specific blockchains. Whenever you have an application and you'd like to decentralize it, whenever you would like to have a blockchain solution and you want to control certain aspects of validation, well, then this is the solution for you. It gives you the most options and the most customizations. So this is very different from any other solution. In fact, there are very few other solutions. Avalanche is literally the highest tech in blockchains. This should be obvious, not only because it innovated in an area at the heart of blockchains called consensus protocols, but also because it brought out a new architecture for how to position your blockchain solutions. So there are only two others that are approximately in the same space as us. And those are Cosmos and Polkadot. And one of these days, I'll do a full comparison to them. But I'll give you the gist. Both Cosmos and Polkadot have bottlenecks in how they have their subnets communicate with each other, in how they position and partition their validators across subnets. We do not. We give you full flexibility in terms of your validator sets, in terms of how you have them communicate with each other. And we certainly do not force you to have to use some bit of centralized infrastructure or centralized architectural components just so that value flows towards some party. So, for example, Polkadot is limited to 100 parachains. Right? They had to have auctions for these things. People paid huge sums of money for them, and it's in the Avalanche world, the equivalent thing is unlimited. You can have as many subnets as you like. We do not go through a primary chain for asset transfers. That's not part of our communication protocol. So it's very possible to go from one subnet to another without using a common intermediary component to affect that transfer. So we are really giving you the best in terms of, and the most flexible platform in terms of building application-specific blockchains. We call them subnets. So it's the easiest route to deployment, best performance because there's so little shared between these subnets that this is how we achieve those impressive numbers. And we also provide subnets as a service. That's probably, that's partially, a big portion of the reason why I had to talk to various people. There are many big actors in this space who are very good at what they do, and they want to venture into blockchains, and they need help launching a subnet. And that's an important and interesting thing. And we are providing more and more tooling to actually launch these subnets. Elastic validation, it turns out, allows people to have open networks, open, highly decentralized networks for whatever application that they want to move to that subnet or for whatever set of applications they want to support on their subnet. Very, very exciting area. I talked about the oncoming validation ecosystem. I think in 2 to 3 years, you're going to see it. I generally have a track record of being a little ahead. I generally have a track record of facing opposition, and then later having people come by and say, oh, well, that was obvious all along. And it's really funny to be there and say, no, it wasn't obvious when I said it, that you guys all opposed me, and now you're trying to act like that never happened. Anyway, it's a fun journey. Here we are, way ahead of the pack, and we allow people to create their own subnets whenever they want to launch their own blockchains, and to connect those subnets with each other in any way and manner that they see fit. There is no forced architectural components in there. So we don't force anybody to open up any aspect of their subnet. You can have a private subnet if you wanted to. But with elastic subnets, you can actually have entirely open subnets as well. Highly decentralized, fully open subnets where anyone can come and go, and everything in between. So very, very exciting. And so that's what elastic subnets give us. I'll have much more to say about this on a day, perhaps when I have more time and less stuff to talk about. We'll go into more depth, and I'll maybe bring on some guests. I might bring on some of the technical people from the Avalanche community. I might actually bring on some technical people from other communities as well. And I'm thinking of changing up the format of these discussions so that we go a little deeper and have a bit more fun and open it up some more. So next thing, OpenC launched on Avalanche. We had a very vibrant NFT community on Avalanche. I did mention that it was a little slow, but that our own natives like Jopex, Campfire, Kalau, and F-Trade, and many others, they provided exciting marketplaces, each with their own strengths. And now we have OpenC, and each and every one of these brings in their own separate user communities. And so that's a high quality venue for trading Avalanche NFTs. So take a look. There have been some really big successes in the NFT space recently. And you know how the NFT game is. There's like a gazillion of these NFT series. Some make it, some don't. It's a game of figuring out where the momentum is going to go. And I don't endorse any of these things, but I'm a human myself. I love some of them. And so I actually follow it. And I try to keep it much more quiet because some people out there are like, oh, you endorse this and that. I don't do endorsements, but I do quietly follow what's going on in the NFT space. It's a really fun space, and in the bear market, it's really exciting because it's kind of interesting to see, and it's also fun to check if you can figure out where the momentum is going to go. All right, let's talk a little bit about institutions. Gabor made a very interesting point. People tend to celebrate big tech and Wall Street entering the crypto market. Yeah, they do. And the question to ask is, what value and services does each company bring to the table other than rent seeking and market control? Some bring value, but many only know how to take value. He is so right. So I would really like at least the Avalanche community to take a look at anything and everything that's happening in the crypto space through this lens. And what's this lens saying? It's saying, don't just celebrate everybody coming in. Citadel coming in to use blockchain, if and when they do, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? It's not so clear. It depends on how they came. Are they offering a new service for us? Are they bringing something new to the table for us? Or are they here to seek rent? Are they here to insert themselves? Are they here to extract value? That's really the question. And, case in point, when we did the KKR deal, KKR brings a new asset type into this whole struggle. It brings a new asset that anybody around the world, if they qualify, can have access to. It expands the space. TVL for our space went up. Now imagine an L2. Imagine a new L1. Imagine an L1 backed by some blue chip thing or another. What are they doing? Are they bringing new tech? In many cases, they're not. In many cases, what's an L2 doing? It's just some guy running something on a laptop, promising that someday maybe it will be decentralized and trustless, but today it's not. So these things, they're just pretty asinine. They are purely cannibalistic. Our own space gets divided, liquidity gets divided, applications get divided. The entire value of the space gets lower as we take on actors like this. So we should always view every single announcement through the lens of, did this expand the value of the space for all of us? You know, I'm very big on this. You know that I worked for many, many years, even prior to Bitcoin, on building peer-to-peer coins, on building peer-to-peer cryptocurrencies. And after I got a whiff of Bitcoin, I've been working to make the cause of digital assets, to make the cause of blockchains and related technologies, cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin itself, as well as others. I've been trying to expand the space and bring new technology in. That's the only way we win this battle. We're not going to win it by getting into a tussle with our friends to the right and our friends to the left and north and south. Okay, that's just not how it's going to be. We win this battle by expanding the space so it consumes all the assets out there. And so when you see people fighting it out on the internet or whatnot, that's another lens to see it from. Are people trying to bring new value into the space? Do they come to the table with something new? Or is it just another asinine play where somebody is like, oh, hey, I'm running something on my laptop. Please use this, and I'll bridge you. I'll checkpoint you onto Ethereum, and I'll give value to Ethereum or whatnot, whatever the asinine play might be. So this, I think, I happen to like Gabor very much, and I think he is so insightful with what he said here. It's a very important thing to keep in mind. All right, in terms of new assets, let's talk a little bit about this new asset that you can introduce to this ecosystem. And it's an asset where there is no central issuer. It's called BTC.B, so bridged Bitcoin. So why is BTC.B so important, and how is it different than WBTC? So what is WBTC? WBTC is an asset where you go to a centralized issuer, you give to them your Bitcoin, they keep your Bitcoin, they give you this other asset, a wrapped asset called WBTC. That W stands for wrapped. So you've got these WBTCs, and now you can use them in DeFi. So that's good. That's not so bad. But the problem is, of course, the problems all have to do with the redemption process. When you need access to your own BTC, how do you get it back? So to mint, so he explains this. To mint WBTC, you submit a request to a WBTC merchant, such as Diversify, BitGo, I think is another one. The merchant will then make a transaction with the custodian that mints the token by sending BTC in exchange for WBTC. Custodian locks the BTC in a reserve, holds it in custody for you. So your BTC you gave to a centralized operator, you got the wrapped assets. To redeem, a similar thing happens in reverse. So you go to the merchant, you give them your WBTC, and you get back your BTC. That's what happens on a good day. Sunny day with the wind on your back, out on the seas, flat seas, this is what happens. When the seas are choppy, when there's a lot of congestion, when there's a lot of price action, when there's a lot of volatility, when there's a lot of uncertainty about the solvency of various actors, things get very complicated. One of the main things, of course, that you should worry about is what happened to that BTC in custody. What did the custodian do with them? Did they just hold them in store for you? They could, but if I've learned one thing about financial assets is nobody likes to keep them around passively. They tell you to hodl, but many other people will actively use them. And it's not at all uncommon for people to lend it out. Is it possible for them to get hacked from the custodian? Absolutely. We see this time and time again. So there are a whole bunch of things that happen. And also, there's the other issue of maybe the custodian is perfect and there's nothing going wrong, but the sheer volume of requests causes the custodian to have to sputter, have to slow down. And if they slow down, then you cannot get access to your coins in a timely manner. You cannot do that unwrapping yourself. And that's the big advantage of BTC.B, bridged Bitcoin. The bridging is done via self-custody. Okay, it's seamless bridging. A user does it all by themselves using their own private key. They use the same private key on the Bitcoin side as well as on the Avalanche side. And so what that means is that any user, whenever they like, can use that bridge to go from Bitcoin to Avalanche, and can use the same bridge to go from Avalanche to Bitcoin at their own leisure. So, and in addition, the cost to do this is minuscule. You don't have to go through a human process. You don't have to go through that whole, this is hello, I'd like to create an account, etc., kind of a process. So give it a try. There are some excellent yield opportunities on Aave. There's some excellent yield opportunities on Banky Finance. So you can take your Bitcoin. You don't have to cash it out. You don't have to sell them. You can borrow against their value if you like. So that's BTC.B. Talked about that in previous videos. Take a look maybe at 2 weeks ago or something when I talked about this. Okay, let's talk a little bit about gaming. There are many, many exciting games happening. I think there are so many. I told you, I alluded to this, and here's some leaked alpha. Actually, speaking of leaked alpha, one of the biggest alpha leaks is how late I am to each and every one of these podcasts. The later I am, it means I've traveled recently. My machines are a mess. My authentication takes far longer. So I apologize for being late today. But delay was because I had moved, I traveled with this laptop, and then re-authenticating here with my security setup takes a while. So that's one alpha leak. The other alpha leak, of course, is the number of subnets in testing that are being staged for coming online. So you can just go look at that. There are many, many dozens of them on Avalanche. I think last count somebody counted 115 or something. So I don't know what the count is, but there are lots and lots of subnets that people are playing with. So I personally can no longer follow what the heck is going on in this space. There's just too much activity. So I'll give you an account to follow if you're interested in gaming on Avalanche. It's called Gaming on AVAX. This is the address on Twitter. Follow if you like. It's dedicated only to this gaming area. There's lots and lots of cool stuff coming on. I looked a little bit at Shrapnel. It looks so amazing. That thing looks so sharp, so hot. It's just insane. Not much of a gamer. So, you guys will probably, I don't know, you guys have all mastered all sorts of things, including aimbots and whatnot. You'll kill me in 2 seconds. But I can't wait for that game to come online and for us to all play it. It's going to be exciting. There are many others like it. Oh, here's Shrapnel. So play it, build it, discover it. The HD version of this thing and using Unreal Engine 5. The video is amazing. I don't have it on the slide deck, but it's just so well done. And there are many other games that are coming online. I'm not doing any of them justice. I apologize to all the great game producers out there. There's great content. And just go to Gaming on AVAX, and they will be featuring some of those things. Oh, here's the trailer. Am I going to see it? Maybe we'll see it. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but maybe we'll see it. Look at this.
Now value. Segment detected. 1.2 million. Alert. Proximity warning.
But it just looks so amazing. I have always wanted to shoot at annoying flashing signs and things. Let's lower the volume a little bit. No, cool body shot there. Who killed who? Oh, you got messed up. No, good. That was cool. That was brutal. Ooh, drone attack. I have no idea. This is like how many triangles per second are being rendered. I have no idea. I remember the good old days when this was first starting, and the graphics engines, you could see the triangles. You can now. It's just amazing. It's so realistic, and the physics engine is just amazing. There's still a bunch of room for improvement. Obviously, I'm super laggy today. I don't know why. And the sound effects are great. They're well timed and coordinated. When objects meet, that's when he stomps his foot on the ground, you can tell that it's maybe not exactly reality, but it's pretty darn close. So there's still work for our computer graphics friends to work on extra realism, but this thing is pretty darn awesome. Okay. Oh, this happened recently. Big bank that's based in Turkey ended up holding a hackathon. Just take a look at this hackathon. Like, there's nothing to say here. There's like so much to say, but I think this picture says it all. Look how many people, and look how happy they look. And it's the professor in me that every time I see young, happy people, I just go like, yeah, this is what it's all about. I don't give a damn if so-and-so is doing this and that or what have you on top of whatever blockchain. I really care about enabling this. So these are all really, really cool projects and really, really exciting people who came together, worked their butts off, and in many cases in every case, I'm sure they left with good friendships, and in many cases left with a product that brings them closer to their dreams of building new things, building exciting things. So let's see what's happening here. Okay. So I'm super thrilled about this. Also, look at the ratio there. It's great. I'm really proud of this as well. And there's a lot to say about gender is obviously a big topic today because of what happened at DevCon 2 days ago. The blue Dow versus the brown backpack guy, what have you. It's too early for me to say anything, of course, because I believe in processes and I believe in figuring out the facts and not relying on people's declaration of facts or what have you. But I will say this, so I won't get into that messy topic, but I will say this. Some countries manage to get women into STEM and others don't. And I've thought quite a bit about this because in computer science, this is a topic that we pay a lot of attention to, at least at Cornell in computer science. We pay a lot of attention to this. So we worked really, really hard to get our numbers up, to get our representation up. And some countries, and it's surprising which countries these are, and I'll name them. So Romania, maybe not so surprising. Turkey, Iran, they tend to have fantastically strong women who in STEM fields. And maybe I shouldn't talk out of STEM in general. Like, I actually don't know STEM. No, my expertise is computer science. There are some amazing female computer scientists in those countries. And so what is it? What makes that happen there? And in comparison, in the US, it's a little harder. I would say the ratio that I saw in Turkey is stronger, better than it is in the US. And there are lots and lots of theories about this. I'm sure people will do actual scientific studies on it. A lot of it has to do with how early students, kids of all genders, are exposed to STEM fields. And if you time it just right, with regard to when people hit puberty, I think you manage to get them in and make it a nice, safe, exciting area for them. And if the timing is off for whatever other reason, I think it's something as simple as that. So there's, of course, a lot of other work to be done as well in making sure that people stay in STEM once you introduce them to it early enough. But I do think that there are lessons to be learned from unexpected places. Anyway, I'm really proud of this. Super, super happy to see so many teams do so well. Let's see. Yeah, 19 teams from 7 cities, 23 universities. Just very, very, very fun stuff. I know some of these characters as well. I met some of them in person back. And in fact, I think one of the teams, let's see how many pictures do we have. One of the teams that got that did really well, I think it might be this team. They met at a previous hackathon that we organized. They didn't know each other at all. They met there. I think they put together something there that wasn't all the best. Like, it was fine, but it wasn't great. And then now I think they got first place or second place or something like that. They did incredibly well. All right, so that's my rant for the day. Let's take questions and see what other people are thinking about and want to talk about. So Woof, lots of questions again. Let me scroll back up. Let me see. Okay. New all-time high. Good morning. Good morning. What do we need to do to get me on Twitter Spaces? Oh, that's easy. I'll get on Twitter Spaces. You just need to send me a message, and then I have to schedule it, and it has to happen at the time when I'm online, and I need to prepare for it because if I use my Android phone, I get disconnected from that thing. I don't know why Twitter is so bad at developing new software, and yeah, it just doesn't work on Android. So I have to get my iPhone charged up for it. So it's very simple. I'll gladly do it. So just contact me. Didn't OpenC have bugs that allowed wallets to be drained? Was that OpenC? It might have been. I did not follow. There are so many of these marketplaces. I do not know, not in command of every single wallet hack, but hacks do happen. I do think that, oh yeah, you have to authorize the wallet to do things. I don't think it was OpenC, but it could have been. It could have been. Yeah, maybe it was OpenC actually. Okay. Does the use of USDCE and USDTE count towards TVL on Ethereum? Great question. Yes, it does. It creates, those assets are now housed on Ethereum and they're wrapped on Avalanche. So it's much better to use USDC native to Avalanche on Avalanche. Much better to use Tether, native Tether on Avalanche than wrapped Tether. And you can easily rotate out of wrapped assets into the natives. Shouldn't there be more of a push to phase these tokens out? Now they're available as native on Avalanche. Absolutely, there was actually. That was a while ago. And Platypus is here. You can do very efficient, very efficient conversions. We might have also facilitated, like maybe you didn't even have to use Platypus. Maybe we also gave you a way to do that conversion as well. So yeah, my memory is not the world's best. So yes, we went through this process shortly after these native assets were first introduced. Richard, you're so right. Absolutely, we should convert. And there are many different tools. Like these days, I think the preferred method is Platypus. So let's see. Can we have a Dash integration in Core just like BTC? We could. So that's extra effort. I would, if the Dash community really wants it, I think maybe one of the community leaders can contact me and we can discuss, timing, etc., what's involved. I think my technical team would like to have some contacts there so we understand what's involved. Nobody's using Dash. I don't know. We're open. I want Core to be the central place that people go to in order to interact with any blockchain. It starts with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Avalanche, obviously, and every other EVM-based system, but it expands from there. So it should be your front end to everything. That's what we think. What's the current mood in New York when it comes to finance? That's a good question. Okay, so there are a couple of things that I can tell you. First and probably most importantly, crypto is here to stay. Everybody I talk to, they know crypto. Like in the old days, 3 years ago, I would have to explain some of this stuff to people. Now they just get it. They know. Okay, so they don't need to understand what Bitcoin is. They already know. They don't need to understand what a consensus protocol is. They understand decentralization. I don't get those stupid boomer questions anymore about, who's issuing this? I certainly don't get, actually, I never got the dumb question of what gives these things value. I get that in DC. Okay, so boomer politicians don't quite understand why things are valuable. But New Yorkers, they understand finance. They understand that things have value because people want them. So crypto is here to stay, and everybody I talk to knows about what's happening in crypto in general. They understand that there are multiple competing L1s, and they've generally heard of Avalanche, so that's great. They've heard of a couple of other chains, and they immediately understand, it's like whatever. I'll name names. I mean, they've heard of Solana. Solana has done a great job of saturating sort of exposure to that market. And that's fine. That's great for them. But Avalanche is known, not as well known, I think, so that's great. There's room for growth. But people are beginning to understand, yes, like this is the next wave. This is a different kind of system. I tell them it's not a single chain, so it's a multi-chain system. It has unlimited scalability. So yes, so number one, the mood is crypto is here to stay. Number two, macro conditions are crap. Everybody is sitting on the sidelines with cash. Everybody has short positions. They're leveraged short. That's a typical thing. And I'm not talking about crypto people. I'm talking about TradFi people that I have spoken to. They got into a very bearish outlook with the messaging from the Fed, and it just kind of goes flip and flop. And it's very hard for the Fed to steer this. I've been thinking about how I would model it using differential equations. It's just, it's so hard. It's such an unstable sort of set of interacting entities that once the Fed gets into this mood, then suddenly everything deflates, all the prices go down for all assets. And so the Fed wants to reduce economic activity, but it doesn't want to tank asset values. It's just something that's very hard to do. Anyhow, so these people are generally, as soon as they hear the Fed make negative noises, they start going into negative territory and they start flipping around. Of course, when I was younger, I never understood contrarian philosophies, really. I was a contrarian myself in many ways, but I didn't understand why that would be why that would pay off in finance, right? So finance is really mostly a momentum game. You want to understand where everyone is going. But contrarians, it's a sensible thing to do. If everybody has gone to the extreme of one side, then there's only up from there, right? So it's very hard to do the timing. Like, when is everybody so down? When is Fed going to flip? So it's hard to know. And if you wait, you'll miss the boat. So it's kind of funny. These are the times when big fortunes are made. So a lot of people are positioning. A lot of people are just perennially slow. These boomer funds, etc., they have processes that make them very slow. So we'll see what happens and who gets left out in the cold. And what did I say then? Crypto is here to stay. Generally, people are in a wait and see attitude. I think as many people as I could imagine being short are already short the market. So they're short. So then, there's no more to short, I think. I think they're all leveraged short. And so that's sort of where we are from what I see. And what else is happening in New York? And there are lots of there are lots and lots of companies here with valuable assets in their hands who want to open them up. They have seen they understand what it means to put something on a blockchain. So it's really exciting, and they're looking for solutions. And as I've mentioned this before, it's wonderful to be here in New York. If we were a tech play, we'd be in San Francisco. If we were a bunch of tech bros, we'd be in San Francisco. We'd be doing YouTube videos from San Francisco to reach other techies, and then we'd do whatever those guys do over there. There's a whole bunch of things they do. The tech bro life. But that's not where we are. If we were an asinine play that's all about, let's get rich and get out of here, then we'd be in a tax haven. We'd be in Texas, we'd be in the Bahamas or someplace like that. But we're here to stay, and we're here to change the world. And so that's why I'm in New York. That's why my company is in New York. So it's great to be here because there's a lot of excitement around crypto in New York. Let's see. How did Uniswap avoid the issues you identified with Bancor? What a great question. Uniswap, I think, ended up doing one big thing, which was it did not have a token. Right, so that was its thing. It was Bancor without a token. So it brought value to the community instead of trying to shoehorn a coin into it. So initially, when it was launched, and for I think the sort of the vast majority of the first 2 years, where they just kind of sat there, they didn't go anywhere, they weren't big. It was just it was just a system without a coin. They how they make money is complicated. The business model is very complicated. Was very complicated without a coin. The issues that we identified with Bancor had a lot to do with impermanent loss. I didn't know the name of it. I don't have a finance background. Which impermanent loss, of course, is very, very permanent. So so that became an issue that that nobody can avoid. It's just part of the AMM structure, and and Uniswap didn't avoid them. It's just they got big in spite of impermanent loss, and I think there's something to be said about doing things that benefit the community, not turning into an asinine play for coins. And because they built up a nice community following, they managed to grow from where they were. And then they added a coin, but then by then people had warmed up to the idea of coins, governance coins, and so forth. So I think that's my take on the Uniswap situation. Technically, what they do, the equation is almost identical. I think it's identical between Bancor and Uniswap, and so that's what it is. And there were a bunch of other issues with Bancor, like there were some like math issues. I remember looking into their tables, and then they were updating the tables, etc. There were some issues with how it was implemented, but the core idea between the two of them are essentially the same. One of them had a coin, the other did not. Built up a community, grew big enough, then they introduced the coin, and so is now doing a big fundraise, or has just done a big fundraise. But the fundraiser's valuation comes mostly from the coins they hold. Right? The business model is still very complicated because they cannot insert themselves to extract value from transactions for regulatory reasons. Do I own a chicken? I believe I do. I believe they sent me a chicken. I believe Kevin has a chicken, and there's a whole lot of chicken funniness going around. Kevin eats a lot of chicken, and then we always make fun of him turning into a chicken. Anyway, bok bok. I was thinking about this. I didn't understand that chickens made the bok bok sound. They make a different sound in every language, and so I'm curious about how chickens sound in different languages. I would really like to. Maybe there's a website for this. I should look at this. They sound totally different in just at least in the languages I know. There aren't that many of them, but the few I know, they sound very different. Sometimes you can be too late to be too early. That's an interesting point. No, we're not. It's never too late to be early. That's not true. You can. You're right. You're absolutely right. You can be too late to be early. That's true. That's true. But I told you guys what my bellwether, what my litmus test is for earliness, right? If the number one coin is an L1 coin, we're still early. We're going to be late the moment the L1, the number one coin is a stable coin. That's when enough capital has come into the space. So we still have room, and we'll see how that goes. Let's see. How is development of the core wallet coming along? When is the next release likely to be? I can't reveal those things. I leak alpha left and right, and obviously, if I'm late, why am I late? I'm probably late because there was some kind of a conversation about something or another. There's a lot of development happening on core, and so you will hear about it. And all I can say is it's not going to be long. So we are talking about various different aspects of core, right? Remember that there's core, the browser extension, and then there's core web wallet, and then there is core mobile. So there's three things. And core browser extension is out. It's overdue, I think, for a new release that fixes up some usability issues that our users identified. There have been, I actually haven't followed how many downloads there have been. I think it's on the order of 10,000 or so. That's not much at all. And we haven't done a big push behind it, but I can't wait to do it because it is so much nicer than say the MetaMask experience. Okay. Oh, Patrick O'Grady was on Logan's podcast. Yes, I heard about this, saw a little bit of it, and then what can I say? It's just amazing. So he talked about subnet messaging, subnet to C-chain messaging, and C-chain is just another subnet. So he talked about different messaging ideas. So expect new ways of trustless communication between subnets. Expect new ways of messaging. Expect new ways of sending assets, sending messages. Is there anything that cool subnets enable for communication with non-Avax chains? What a great question. So we're going to take forever if I go into this in great depth. But I will say a whole bunch of things. First of all, I think one of the things that people should realize is that subnets are not all about creating your own EVM chain. There are many different ways of building subnets. Case in point, the Spaces VM. It's a blockless subnet. So for those of you with an academic background, there's a concise way of what that is. That's essentially using the subnet system for what we call group membership, right? So you're building a distributed system. One of the critical questions is who's in it? Who are the members of this distributed system? And so you can use the subnet system for that. That makes perfect sense in many, many applications. And we use exactly that for Spaces VM. And so having identified who the members are, then you can do whatever you like with them. And you could couple that with any other non-Avax chain if you wanted to. Right? So that's one. But you're asking for like cool subnet. So here's a cool subnet idea, a dual-homed subnet. So we create a subnet, and the subnet is simultaneously an L2 on Ethereum and a subnet on Avalanche. Is this possible? Very, very easy to do. Incredibly easy. In fact, I wanted to do this, right? So I was like, hey, you know what? Enough of this L2 BS. Lots and lots of people make noise about it. Let me show the world, how the subnet architecture is more fundamental, simpler than just about anything else. And it can be used to build L2s out, et cetera, et cetera. So I said, let me take an L2 and let me take the best L2 that's trustless and then run it on Avalanche as a subnet. Now, the problem is I was unable to find an L2 that was trustless. All of these things have centralized components. So that's where I was. Then I was like, oh my God, like this is, there's so much noise about these things, and yet none of them, like not a single one works. None of them have the fraud proofs they need to have. None of them are, there's not a single one that I could find that has a decentralized sequencer. So, and why am I going to take that and port it, etc., knowing that it's a shell of it's just an undergrad project. Like I don't want to take those things. So so you could take those. Well, you could build such a thing if you had the right components. You could have an L2 that's straddling Ethereum and Avalanche very, very easily. And so those are fun things off the top of my mind. But I'm sure those of you listening to me right now will come up with even cooler uses of subnets. Okay. Yes, we're running a little behind. Thank you. I told you that's the alpha leak. I'm getting my tea, actually, it turns out. Right, crypto governance. Well, that's interesting question, Stephen. Yeah, we do need governance at some point, but governance tokens are a little bit dicey territory. So we need to. One could have. Anybody could deploy a governance token if you wanted to, and then convince the community to adopt the results of said governance. That's possible, and it's possible. It's anyway. So we'll think about I will think about. I'm constantly thinking about the governance issue. So yeah. Let's see what's the doxing is going on. I don't know what the doxing is all about. What is this show about? Channel Giraffe comes in and always asks these questions. I don't know what the deal is. What will have to occur for Bitcoin to be flipped? What will the new number one project need look like to take the number one spot? That's actually that's a great question. Bitcoin will be flipped, and it's just a matter of time. If all of the chains do nothing new, then ultimately there will be enough activity using stable coins that one of the stables will grow to be big enough to take the number one spot. So if enough capital moves into crypto form, then Bitcoin will get flipped. Is capital going to flow more and more into crypto? To me, that question is the answer to that question is so obvious. Yes, it's happening. Like think of the Markov chain, if you will. There's constantly new money coming in into the crypto space because it's so much more convenient, and there are very few reasons for it to leave once it's in that form. So that's one. The relative ranking of different chains. How is that going to change? that changes as people realize more value in certain assets. Now, all sorts of things can happen. You can do asinine trickery, and I think Ripple did something like this. Was it Ripple or Star? I forget who. One of those coins in the very earliest of days. They minted. They minted. I forget. Like I'm making numbers up, but something like 1 trillion of these things, and then you do one transaction. Like the float was very small, and then you multiplied the numbers, and then they got the number one spot, and everyone was up in arms, and they changed the way the calculation is done. So there's a coin called PTK. So it was created by a couple of friends of mine, and I don't know how many trillions of PTK there exist, but they minted a gazillion trillion PTK. They gave 0.000001 PTK to Vitalik. They asked for $1. Vitalik gave them $1, and then suddenly, they are the richest. Whoever minted that, I'm not going to name their names. The person who minted it became the richest person in the universe, and you'd be like, "Hey, you want a couple billion? I'll send it to you." And so you have to be a little careful, of course, at that point, because I don't know what the tax implications would have been. They surely would have complicated one's taxes if you just touch that stuff. It's obviously incredibly illiquid, and it's definitely not worth a gazillion trillion or whatever the number is. So these number one spots, they change. I'm sure people will do some trickery to get up there. But in a healthy economy with comparable float, etc., comparable percentage float, among comparable coins of comparable decentralization, there are coins that when I look down that list, I just I don't even see them. Right? They're not decentralized, so their presence on that list doesn't even register with me. So among the decentralized coins that actually have meaningful float, meaningful assets being traded every day, etc., to flip to go up in ranking, the thing that has to happen is proving value and onboarding new assets, bringing new use cases, and enabling new things on top. If you do that, you will slowly eat into that 700 trillion of assets that are outstanding, and you will also allow people to create another 700 trillion of new assets. NFTs aren't there yet; they don't even register on the trillion scale. But there will be new asset types of that kind that are virtual assets created on chain that grow that number as well. So if you can make that happen, and if you have the technological infrastructure to absorb that growth, then you will win this game. Today, I can safely say that Avalanche has that infrastructure. We're not a single chain. A single chain will forever be limited. No matter what trickery you do with your benchmarking, etc., no matter what trickery you do, whatever with how you store stuff, etc., there's only so much you can do on a single chain. Avalanche supports infinite subnets, and so we can absorb an infinite amount of growth, and I can't wait to see that happen. And there really is nothing like it. The cross subnet communication doesn't have central bottlenecks, so that growth is absorbable with the architecture we built. And technically, I don't see anybody else with anything comparable. Okay, so many good questions. Yes, there are lots of exciting questions. Today was really fun. I was thinking that most people would be down in Bogota having fun and not up here. So, but I got very, very good questions. So, big up to this crew today. What are the top stories in crypto this week anyway? It seems like not all that much is happening. Oh, one big story that I should have mentioned is Tether has reduced its dependence on commercial paper down to 0%. So I was worried. I think a lot of people in crypto were worried about the solvency risk of Tether, of the commercial paper behind Tether. And you don't want Tether to be in a situation where its backing value is somehow insolvent. And so that's the problem. And that worry is taken off the table. And I feel great about that. So congratulations to Paolo and the rest of the crew at Tether. They did an amazing job. I think they've been doing an amazing job in the last few years in answering all sorts of other challenges. especially the big challenge of them all. Southern District, New York, the Attorney General's office essentially did the audit that everybody demanded of Tether. And in the early days, I was skeptical of Tether's claims, like everybody else, because they promised audits and the audits never came. But I would say last 4 or 5 years or so, I've been convinced by the fact that they managed to withstand the hardest legal challenge of them all, and over time, I think they've been very responsive to audience concerns, to our concerns. So, fantastic job by them. I'm really happy about that. Otherwise, the salacious story, we touched upon it anyway, was the Blue Dow versus the brown backpack guy. That's what everybody's talking about last couple of days. These gender-based discussions. Everybody has an opinion. Nobody cares to seek out facts anymore. You get your pitchfork out and you start attacking people left and right. And it's a little sad to see. I would hope that we would stop, attacking people online, offline, etc. And then we spend a little bit more time building processes to figure out, hey, what happened here before we kick people out, etc., etc. Or we attack people online for whatever it is. So, okay. Let's see. What TradFi assets do I think will be the earliest to migrate to the chain and have the most success? That's a really good question. There's so much happening. I think the funds, the various different investment funds, they have KYC AML. That's actually not very complicated. They love the reach of blockchains. So we're seeing that. KKR is doing it. KKR is I think, the world's largest asset management firm. They have 500 billion under management. Just think about what that. One company controls 500 B, and so I think that's what we're beginning to see. It's very straightforward, very, very simple model, and there are many others. The ones that involve attachment to say real estate, for example, those are hard. They're perfect in many ways because you could take the entire government database and put it on a blockchain and make it native. But governments are very slow to move. It's going to take them 10, 15 years to do that. There have been attempts in Georgia, the country of Georgia, and in Russia, because people don't trust the way the government records are kept there, and that country ended up putting their land records on there. So that's okay. But in general, it's not crypto native, etc., etc. They end up checkpointing a hash, and I don't know if they still do it. They were doing that on top of Bitcoin multiple years ago, 5 years ago or so. So what's what are the other assets? I think it's going to start with funds. I think it's going to start with perhaps it's going to start with governance mechanisms for companies. So there are lots and lots of things of this kind, but at the same time, the crypto space will grow. And companies will start issuing coins and start using coins as part of their business processes. I've mentioned this before also. So, I don't believe in a day when suddenly equities are traded on a blockchain. I don't think that day will come anytime soon because there are so many incumbents, not regulations. Regulations come after the incumbents. There are so many incumbents, so many people who eat out of that trough that they don't want anybody coming into it. And they guard it very, very, very carefully. So I think you're not going to be able to buy Apple on the chain easily. You might be able to do it today. I'm sure there are. In fact, I know there are ways you could do it today, but you're not going to be able to do it at scale easily the way you and I would consider a crypto native transaction for some time to come. Fund offerings by a single entity, that can happen, and is happening. We're making it happen with KKR. And there are a bunch of others that are doing similar independent things as well. And perpetuals, derivatives, we see those. That's another area. The regulation there is unclear. Less incumbents, we might see more of that happening. I'll move on. There's so much more to say, but I'll move on just because my voice is going. I only have 6 more minutes. So let me see. Lots and lots of people clapping. I'm not sure what they're clapping about. Probably knobs or something. is there a services business that can be valuable for the Avalanche ecosystem? I'm an entrepreneur and would like to start a business in this space. Joey, yes, there are many service businesses that can be valuable for the Avalanche ecosystem as well as just generally blockchains as a whole. The subnets as a service field is really exciting. Blockchain front ends, Web 2 like front ends for Web 3 applications is a services business, it's a software service business. Subnets as a service is a different thing. It's like you're launching a subnet for someone. These are really exciting off the top of my head, two different ideas. And there are many more ideas. And I very much encourage you to come to one of the Avalanche hack houses. We have quite a few of these planned. The very first one is in Berkeley on October 24th through October 28th. On October 28th, I'm going to bring in as many smart people as I can, as many VC friends as I can, so that there's going to be a sort of a show and tell pitch day at the end. And it's a great venue to meet people. Even if you're not officially there, show up. I think there will be snacks and ice cream and whatever. Just come and talk to people. See if you find other kindred spirits that you can work with, talk to, etc. If the Bay Area is not very far from you. If it's very, very far from you, there will be other hack houses around the globe. And they will be truly international. We'll go all around the globe. Look, price bad. Can devs do something, please? Yes, devs do something. So devs generally don't look at price. Yeah, there's price action. It happens. We're a new coin, and this is it's these things have some volatility. You guys wouldn't be here if there wasn't volatility, right? If this was as stable as Facebook, this field would be completely uninteresting. So you gotta love the volatility. You just got, even if you don't love it, you gotta internalize it. It draws us in, and it also kills us every now and then. It's just, this is why all the traders all do that code posting and so on. Can devs do something? I fully assure you, devs are doing everything any human can, plus some other huge percentage. This is the hardest working group of people I've ever seen. Some of whom work with me, and some of whom are external to Ava Labs, but we're all working our butts off. Trust me on this. And you can tell, probably, look at my voice. You can easily tell that I've been working fairly hard. So that's another alpha, by the way. How late I am and how cracked my voice is when I talk to you guys. I've been working my butt off and on a bunch of fronts. Some technical. Oh, yesterday was absolutely lovely. I did a code walkthrough of Enclave. Enclave.market. So take a look at it. It is, if you want to buy coins in bulk or not, but suppose you want to buy $1 billion worth of coins without moving the markets, there's only one place you can go to, and that's Enclave.market. If you are listening to me and you work at a big firm and you don't want, you want to buy in to some coin, Bitcoin, or you want to sell, either way. So you want to do some trading, but you don't want that fact being known. Okay, trust me, everybody in this space knows everything. Okay, so if some big company is shorting or going long or whatnot, everybody gets to find out. We're all within 6 hops of each other. So if you want to take a position without anybody knowing what it is, then you got to use a solution that's cryptographically and hardware security-wise guaranteed to not leak information. There's only one such solution, Enclave.market. So if you like your price, where the market is at without slippage, if you don't want MEV, if you don't want front running, if you don't want malfeasance in the background, and you want to keep everything confidential, then Enclave.market is the solution for you. I had the pleasure of looking at it, looking at the code base in great depth yesterday, and it was just lovely. I don't get to code as much as I used to, obviously, but that was my hidden pleasure. Devs are doing so many things. So they expect even more exciting new products coming through the pipeline. The space is going to grow. Marketing for sure is the response to Joey. Yes. I think, we suffer from this in Avalanche. I think our marketing messaging is, there's only so much one can do, right? So we're inventing so many new things. And this is something that I suffered with, when I was in grad school as well. Like, you could see that there were people in grad school who built things, and then there were people in grad school who marketed themselves. And then there's a slider, right? And you could move the slider over here, move the slider over there. We could be an asinine L2 play, just market us, hey, we're very friendly to Ethereum, and I'm running everything on a laptop, but umpteen years from now, we're going to come up with zero knowledge bloody flaw, and with proto upset, reverse inverse accumulator VRF VDF sharding. One could say that and constantly promise something and just market oneself with no tech. And then the other option is you look at us. We just we deliver results. We have a sound technical foundation, and but then the flip side is we barely have like one dry notification, and then we don't get the crypto Twitter talking about us. We don't strive to. So that should change. I think we should spend a little bit more time talking about why the Avalanche approach to this is far more sensible. Because when we don't, the thing that I alluded to earlier happens, right? People first fight you, they throw a whole bunch of verbiage at you, and then after a while they adopt what you're doing, they give it a different name, they start marketing the thing you invented that they fought you on, and then you start getting into this funny situation. You're like, what the heck are you doing? The nice thing, of course, is if you're doing the right things, your usage grows. More people come on to you, and you can scale in a way that other people cannot. In a bear market, it turns out if they can't scale, it's not that important. But because the usage is not at 100% right now. But regardless, so the core metrics I track, they're growing, but we should be doing more and expect us to do better in terms of discussing the Avalanche approach to scaling, why subnets are different, why the Avalanche approach to bridging is different than most other people's. So expect those discussions, and I hope to have them with you in public. So marketing for any type of project, everything that we're doing. There's so many different products on top of so many different projects on top of Avalanche. Yes, DeFi projects needing help marketing outside of the Avalanche community. I agree. What are a few good examples of subnets? More Money DeFi and Wolfie are both subnets. One features NFTs and one is a loan protocol. How is that? Subnets are they can be application specific. They can be dedicated to certain use cases. So and the reason why somebody launches a subnet is to isolate themselves from the load on the main chain. So especially a loan protocol. A loan protocol is going to see heavy usage when there is volatility. Imagine a loan protocol that's on a network that is shared with some incredibly popular games. So when the gamers are going at it, you might not be able to get to your loan pool. You might not be able to update your capital, and you might be liquidated. So on a system, on a single chain like Ethereum 2, on a single chain like Solana, everything is commingled. You only have one chain, and there's no isolation. So on Avalanche, it's very different, and the loan protocol would have its own subnet, and therefore it would be isolated from the load. The fees would be predictable. It would have its own lifetime. It would have its own dynamics. So that's one of the reasons why. There are many other reasons for why you might want to have your own subnets, but this is a simple example. RaceX, you have 2 great cars to race. That's awesome. Sometimes people give me some of these NFTs, so I don't exactly know which NFTs I have and which I don't. I'm pretty sure I have a chicken, by the way, the Bok chicken, and but there's a bunch of other ones too. It's a big section on subnets at the website. Yes, it's worth reading. Yeah, I can't read everything right now. Avalabs will do something to fix the horrible tokenomics around subnets validators. Even if we onboard big brands, what's the value? Ooh, that's a good question. Let's do the math. Let's say we onboard a big brand with, say, like a big brand. What's a big brand? They have 100 million users. Okay, so 100 million daily users. You put that on top of I don't know what, a single chain. The fees are going to be sky high. You guys will all start crying. So suppose they want to come in as subnets. So do you think they will do a single subnet? We just said a single chain can't handle that. So they're going to start a bunch of different subnets for the bulk of their activity, and perhaps have a contract chain or so, or maybe a set of contract chains with similarly deployed services on top. So suppose they start out, I don't know, a few dozen to I don't know, say 100 subnets. But 100 subnets doesn't really quite cut it, because like 100 subnets is good. We're handling a lot of load, but they all have to be somewhat decentralized. If it were not decentralized, then what's the value? You'll just go to the website. Why are you using a blockchain operation? So suppose somebody's starting up 100 subnets. They will come up with some kind of a mechanism for incentivizing validators on there. We just made elastic validation possible. So they will come up with some tokenomics that allows people to join in as validators. Every single one of those validators will have to tie down 2,000 AVAX. So AVAX, I should say, whatever, everybody else says AVAX. So 2,000 AVAX times 100 times whatever. You do the math. That's a lot of buy pressure. My worry is not value accrual to the AVAX token. My worry is this might stifle growth. That is, there might not be enough AVAX tokens for all the use cases. So I think at some point we'll have to go the other way and start asking that question. We should take the longer view, and the subnet growth was hampered this summer because nobody wanted to launch in the summer when the markets were down. But you will see them coming. Like all these games, etc. They're itching to go, and as they come in, we're going to see growth. And people don't necessarily trust me. They don't have the long-term vision. But everything I said about subnets has come to be. Everybody was crying to me about fees and how much they had to pay, and how $2.50 was too much. We reduced that. We're not going to be doing some asinine play where we extract value in the short term, and by making, I don't know, by forcing people to go back to the main chain. I shouldn't call it a main chain, to go back to the C chain. It's just a subnet itself. We're not going to do some asinine play. It's not in the Avalanche ethos at all. So we're going to get the value by the growth of subnets, and that's going to happen, I believe. There's zero AVAX burnt when they use their own trade fee. Yeah, you are right. So you just let's give it some time. And I'm personally very open to any and every suggestion that people might have. But I'm not going to hamper the growth of the ecosystem. I think that's a bad idea, and I'm not going to put in artificial or asinine limits into place just to direct money to holders, etc. So I think those are not good moves. Yes, I think people are discussing this now. Yeah, I think AVAX can technically only have 360,000 subnets with current supply. Exactly right. So I worry about those kinds of limits. In Spanish, they say what? That's Spanish? It's not Spanish. I don't know what those letters are. At least on my screen, they're not visible properly. Can we do some kind of burn like BNB? Yeah, one could, but what's the point? Those are, again, asinine things that people do. It's an idea. I'm open to ideas, but I don't quite see the value of a burn. I see a lot of value in airdrops. I think that would be cool. Just get coins in the hands of people who've done some activity. I think that sounds really cool. Why not? And I would throw in some of my own coins into that as well. It's a good idea I'm thinking about. I was too late to be early for this all access. Okay, you are so right. I was too late to be early. You are right. Okay, so let me wrap up. I'm getting tired, and we're going down to. I think there's like a lot of questions here. Is AVAX Gaming going to start doing game acquisition? No, we don't do game acquisition. We like to foster our own communities We would much rather invest in your success. I'm talking about AVAX Gaming. I don't know what AVAX Gaming is an account. Is a Twitter account. Ava Labs has some gaming interest, but that interest is in fostering other people to succeed. We don't want to get into that game. We don't want to acquire games. We don't want to be a competitor in the game space. We want you to succeed. It's not. We're a platform provider. Platforms like Pangolin and Trader Joe need to remove rewards for providing wrapped assets like USDTE. You're right, but I think they did, and the rewards are for USDT, the natives, and not for the wrapped ones. When I last checked, this was the case. It might have reverted. So thank you, Richard. I'll take a look at what's happening and talk to those teams. This is all beyond me, but I did talk to them and I said, hey, let's all try to move to the natives. It's better for the ecosystem. And I'm pretty sure they did back in the day. So if that has reverted back, I'll talk to them. I think that's great. Thank you. If AVAX price increases, doesn't it incentivize new subnet projects? Yes, it can. That can happen. So the number of elastic validation helps with that. So a new subnet can just say, hey, we're elastic. We will ourselves provide the bare minimum of nodes, and then we'll incentivize other people to come in. I think that's the right way. It opens up those projects to public participation as well. I think it's good for everyone. But the other flip side of this is, as AVAX price increases, we should change the requirement of 2,000 AVAX to validate. So no, I'm not Do Kwon. Very different person, very different technology. In credit card payment method, we can cancel later and the amounts get refunded, and also during fraudulent activity. Do we have a similar thing in crypto payments? Ratna, what a great question. So maybe I end on this note, but let's talk about this. So Dr. Itai Eyal and myself invented this thing. This is called a vault. So you are inventing something very similar. So normally, crypto payments are instantaneous and irrevertible, right? So irrevocable, they can't be reverted. So I send you, there's my account, there's my address, there's coins in my address, there's your address. I send you a transaction, they're transferred to you, they are yours. And as soon as the transaction is final for you, which is instantaneously when it's on the chain, then the possession of the coins has been transferred to you. The system allows you to move them, and then they're yours, and you can do whatever you want. Which means that if you're defrauded, if somebody gets you to type your mnemonic into the wrong web page, etc., they can steal your coins. And we noticed that this was going on, and Itai and I came up with various different mechanisms for making blockchains safer. So actually, this idea is not just Itai and myself, it's also Malte Moser as well. So Malte was, I think it's maybe Dr. Moser now. He was a student last I saw him, he was a student at Princeton. Last I talked to him, he was a student at Princeton. Itai Eyal is a professor at the Technion University, and then there's me. So we invented something called vaults. Here's what you can do. Give me some moments, please, everyone, because I'm going to say some things and people always get triggered unless they listen until the end. So I'll ask you to listen until the end. So we created a different kind of a transfer, a revocable transfer. Okay, that is optional. You don't have to use them if you don't like them. So here's what you can do. You take your coins, instead of keeping them in your regular address, you move them into a vault address. Okay, vaults have two keys, not just one key. One key for transfers and one key for revocation. And vaults have special transactions. So a regular transaction would transfer my coins to you and you would have them. In a vault transaction, coins are transferred to you, but they can be revoked for a period of time with the revocation key. Okay? And so you don't get to move the coins until the end of that time. So I put a transaction on the chain, and let's say there's a 24-hour limit, and for 24 hours, you don't get the transaction is finalized in some sense, but you don't have ownership of those coins until the expiration of those 24 hours. Okay, so far so good. So what does this allow one to do? If I'm ever hacked, if I ever lose my coins, then I can come in and say, hey guys, hey, I saw that my coins were just transferred out of my account, and I'm going to now use my revocation key to get the coins back. And if I was somewhat smart and I kept those two keys apart, then I could use the revocation key to override any theft out of my regular wallet. So far, so good, I hope. Now, just for those of you who are really, really smart and thinking 2 steps ahead, what happens when the revocation key is compromised as well? Well, that's a really bad scenario. And in those cases, you can burn the tokens. So either one of the parties can burn it. There's no way to establish who has it. And certainly, there's no centralized party to say, well, this is the real Ratna. This is the attacker who took Ratna's coins. And, I'm going to determine who's who. I'm going to look at the sequence of transactions, the legal court documents, and so on, and determine true rightful ownership. So because that can't happen, we simply came up with this notion of just burning the coins. When you burn the coins, they're of no use to the attacker. And the attacker might burn them out of spite. That's a jerk thing to do. Attackers tend to be jerks, but that's fine. But at least the attacker doesn't get to keep them. So net expected value from a detected hack is 0. So if you ever see your coins move, you at least get this worst case scenario, you get the satisfaction of burning the coins so the attacker can't have them. But if you were smart and you kept your revocation key separate from your main wallet key, you kept it offline, then you could use the revocation key to get your coins back to yourself. It does involve adding some latency. So the merchant with whom you're transacting should be okay with that latency. These vaults are exceptionally good for not for interacting with merchants so much, but for cold wallets. So you have some coins, currently they sit somewhere in a wallet, and you try to keep that key secret, but occasionally you need it to move stuff out, and that's when you get compromised. But now if you keep them in a vault, you've got 2 keys. One of those keys is permanently offline as long as everything is good, and that's the revocation key. The other is the wallet key. If for some reason you lose the wallet key to an attacker, then you could use the revocation key to get your coins back. It's kind of a smart idea. There's a nice paper. These are called Moser Eyal Sirer vaults, MES vaults. They've been implemented on top of Bitcoin. Vitalik did an implementation in a smart contract sometime, and it's just all open implementation. You can go use them if you wanted to. I encourage everybody to read up on them. They're really fun, and they're well known. Sometimes they credit us, sometimes they don't, but we are the inventors of them. I did a lot of stuff in this space, so at a very high level. I worked at almost every software level in the blockchain space, from consensus protocols all the way up to DeFi primitives, escape hatches, cold storage ideas, etc. So I've touched it all. And you could use this on Avalanche if you wanted to. It's fairly straightforward to build if you want to. All right, I'm going to stop, and I'm a little tired. I need more warm tea, but this was a lot of fun for all of us who are not, I think, in Bogota. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Let me just read this. Nathan. Hi, Nathan. Thank you for the nice note. Maybe we end up on that note. I feel like I really enjoy these discussions myself. And as I mentioned, we're going to do a bunch of things going forward in Avalanche. We're going to open up the development timeline far more to the community. Expect that to happen this fall. I'm going to be discussing, stuff that's in the works far more with people. I'm going to spend less time on development, perhaps. Devs will do less, but devs will end up doing more discussion with the community to engage all of you. I'm grateful to have all of you. These are very, very, very intriguing, insightful, amazing questions. And I really greatly enjoy my time with you. So I hope you got something out of it as well. So I'll let you guys have a great weekend. I'm hoping that it's going to be sunny and nice over here as well. I'm hoping to go biking tomorrow. Otherwise, see you here in a week with even more accomplishments. Have a great time. Bye-bye.